Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Josh Barber from Idle Heirs to the podcast. Idle Heirs' debut record, Life is Violence, is out this Friday on Relapse Records. Josh talks about his musical journey and the scene in Kansas City, how being young and cocky got him started as an audio engineer, working as Norma Jean's producer, and then we dive into connecting with Sean, starting Idle Heirs, and all things Life is Violence. Certain conversations stand out, and this is one I enjoyed a lot, and it was fun for me to revisit it in the editing process. Thanks much for listening to As the Story Grows. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome. You can find links in our show notes or at asthestorygrows.com to our mailing list on Substack, our podcast community over on Discord, or to our Patreon page where you can support the show financially and get early access to every episode. I wanted to note that recently I had to remove the podcast from Spotify for some copyright issues. So if you've been a Spotify listener and have missed a few episodes, wondering where the podcast has gone, it's not on Spotify anymore, but we are on Apple, on YouTube, on asthestorygrows.com, as well as TuneIn, Pandora, Audacity. I mean, if it's a podcast platform, you can find it. We're on iHeartRadio. Speaking of YouTube, we've had a bunch of comments over on YouTube the last few weeks. First up, we had Temu Puka commenting on chapter 595 with Katla. They said, just randomly discovered Scandinavian Pain by checking CDs in a store in France. I really like the cover and the band's name. Finn Troll, first singer stage name, is also Katla. So I first thought of him releasing a solo album, but in fact, not at all. But who gives a shit about that? This album is so fucking great, heavy, and gut-shaking. The mix and mastering is perfect, and the low-end frequencies are very well representative and gives the album a fucking massive sound. The guitars ripping like old-school Swedish death metal. That fucking bass seems to come from the depths of the earth. Been searching for this kind of sound that mixes black metal and doom and sludge, or that kind of stuff for a long time, and Katla granted that wish. Your album is perfect. If they tour and come into France, I'll go without question, but I'll buy your future releases. Really nice job, Katla. Keep on going. I agree. If you haven't listened to Scandinavian Pain yet, it's an absolute killer record. I love it a lot. And yeah, thanks much for leaving that comment. Over on chapter 590 with Margarita Monet of Edge of Paradise, Electro Kid Drake wrote, "This band is awesome." I agree. And last but not least, on chapter 593 with John Keevil of Warbringer, Thrash TV wrote, "The sword, the sword, the sword, the sword. For a while, I bring you the sword." Thanks so much for leaving a comment. If you leave a comment on YouTube or on Apple Podcast or on another platform that I will hopefully see, I'll read it on the podcast. I love fan interactions, and it's so great to get these comments. All right, enough of me chatting. Enjoy today's conversation with Josh Barber from Idle Heirs. Not much, dude. How you doing?
Good. Enjoying an ice cream sandwich thing.
Nice.
Oh,
That's a good way to end the evening, right? Like,
yeah. Dude, I'm sorry about my face. Check this out.
Oh, jeez.
I took a armrest in the van on the way back from our shows to the face. So
that's brutal.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. We were trying to watch the Super Bowl. And we hit a bump, and my hip caught an armrest in a different part of it, and it pivoted me and slammed me into another armrest up front.
Oh, geez.
So this one's for you.
That sucks.
Yeah. Worst things have happened.
I mean, yes, for sure. I mean, it's not the most boring story for a battle scar, right? You're just like...
It is the lamest battle scar I've gotten, but
wow.
not mad about it. I mean, I used to box, so like
Oh,
yeah. Everybody's like, oh my God, do you need stitches? I'm like, it'll be another good story.
It's fine. Good times. It's fine. We don't use the video here anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Good. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it's all good. How are things? You're in Kansas City?
Yeah, Kansas City, Missouri.
Nice. How are things going there?
Dude, really good. Apparently tonight, we're gonna start getting like 5 to 9 inches of snow.
Okay.
Yeah, where are you at?
Just north of DC.
Oh, okay. So
it is also snowing.
Yeah,
which is fun.
Yeah, man. All around, we're just all trying to get snowed in. I went and grabbed. We just got back late yesterday, so I went and grabbed some of my gear so I can write and work on some stuff from home since I can't be at my studio.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, my daughter is very mad. She's just like, why is it snowing? It snowed once. Like, can't we get warm now? And I'm like, it's February. Like, it's the winter. Like,
yeah. I want to go outside too.
You got chill. I know. It doesn't help that we were just in California, so she's just like, it was warm. Like let's go.
And that's where'd you go in California?
Disneyland.
Oh, lucky. That'd been great for her, man.
Oh yeah.
That's killer.
Yeah, it's good times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you grow up in the Kansas City area?
I did. Like a majority of my life has been here, and I've been in other places for short periods of time for work. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm Kansas City born and raised.
Nice.
Well, not born, raised. Sorry.
Raised.
Raised.
What was growing up like?
I grew up very, not exactly poor, but not exactly middle class. Like, my dad was worked at the Board of Public Utilities here, and grew up in KCK in the dot, as they call it around here, and just like the last bit of the 80s kids. Like, I was 83, so like I still have memories of be home before the lights kick on the street and not locking your door kind of scenario. And we lived in a pretty I wouldn't say rough part of town. It was just a lot of blue collar workers and Boy Scouts and riding your bike and fights in the street, normal 80s kids stuff.
Yeah. What thing got you into music?
Oh, well, music for me was interesting because like my dad, he'd always play interesting stuff. Like he liked the Eurythmics and Prince and Fish and, radio was always kind of like 80s hits and stuff like that. He wasn't like big into like big rock stuff.
Okay.
That I can remember. Like I remember the Eurythmics a lot. Like he loved the Eurythmics, and I kind of became aware of stuff like when he would let me plug music in on the jukebox at the barbecue joint down the street.
Okay.
And gosh, I can hear the song in my head, but I can't think of it. Something to do with magic. I can't remember what it was, but I remember Bad Company, like that album and stuff like that. And I'd see it and I was like, okay, I became aware that there's this thing, music. It's not just on the radio in the car. And then where I really started finding stuff was there was like a buddy who was in my Boy Scout troop that played in a punk band around here.
Okay.
I think they were called Brody Cagstar or something. And we went to a show and I was like, wait, people do this stuff live. And it's my friend and it was like punk. And I was like so excited about it that like, it's kind of like that. I don't know what to do with my body kind of excitement.
Yeah.
And like one of the first concerts I think I went to was like a Boy Scout rally and it was like Al Green played. And it was sick.
It's cool, but you probably didn't appreciate it when you were young. You like it goes right over your head. You don't want to be there.
I think George Bush Sr. showed up on like a satellite thing and some like, I had no appreciation for it. But like when I saw my friends play and I went to these like little dank coffee shops around KC, I was like, whatever this is like what I want to do. And then my brother and I really got into the Bleach album from Nirvana.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was kind of our meeting ground was on Nirvana. And so I followed that which, Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic Youth. And then that even went further down into like Propagandhi, Subhumans, like punk.
Yeah.
He went like Led Zeppelin, Beatles route.
Okay.
And we were just warring. I was like, dude, punk, and you're into this lame classic rock crap. But yeah, that's where I kind of became aware of music, and just seeing it live, the energy with it was like so intoxicating. And I didn't know what I could do, because we did piano. And my mom, my dad had passed away when I was 12, and my mom put us into piano. And I was like Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins, stuff like that was what I was getting into, like the grunge movement.
Yeah.
And then I'm stuck playing like classical piano. Right. And I played by ear. I never really learned anything.
Yeah.
And my teacher called my bluff. She's like, tell me what meter you're in, what key you're in, and what you're doing. And I was like, I don't know.
I have no idea. Yeah.
This isn't like, I just watch you play it and I hear it and I go, okay, your hands go here.
Yeah.
And then but the patterns were like what I followed. And she fired me, and she told my mom he needs to learn a different way. I'm not the teacher for him. It wasn't a mean thing. She was just like, he needs to learn his own thing. And that's when my mom realized all the years of me saying I need a guitar. She went and took me to Guitar World here, and I found this Fender Strat, and I thought it was black, and I was like, this is the dopest thing ever. And then we got it outside of the shop that was all dimly lit, and it was like champagne red. And I was like, this is not the guitar I fucking wanted. They would not fund us.
Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah. Funny story about that. Lost it for years. It is sitting in a glass case. I found it. Somebody had it. It's my fucking guitar.
Nice.
I got it back almost 20 years after not knowing where it was, but that's it. Like once I got that, I was like listening to like How to Play Tonight by the Smashing Pumpkins on the radio. Like we would sit there with a cassette and like record. Yeah. Like, oh, In Utero came out. I'm going to learn how to play Heart Shaped Box, and we'd record it, or Metallica, the Black Album, and things like that. And that's kind of what started it all.
Nice. So. Nice. That's rad. I played a Stratocaster like once, and I tried to love it, but I was like, this is not a guitar for me. I hated it.
Yeah. I'm a Gibson. I'm a Les Paul. Sure. I'm a big hollow body guy right now. Like we have Hagstrom guitars for the band. And they're some of the best guitars I've ever played. So nice.
It sounds like there's a pretty thriving music scene in Kansas City for you to like be a part of locally and like start bands or join bands. And
much more so in the 90s.
Yeah.
I was kind of young. Like I didn't have an opportunity like my brother did. He was older than I, and he could kind of get together with people a lot easier. I had to lie a lot to be in bands and to play. And like my mom, she suffered me like disappearing and saying I was staying with people or doing something. And, but yeah, there was a thriving, look at like our history. We got Get Up Kids, we got Reggie in Full Effect, Coalesce, which, duh.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of cool bands like Frog Pond and Outhouse, and who was another one, that rock band? Gosh, I can't think of them. They were like essentially like Tool ripoff, but they were really good. Earshot.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, some of those guys are from around here. Puddle of Mud was from around here. Like, but like there's a lot of really cool eclectic things. Like now, we're in this phase. It's coming back. Cool music. So there's a lot of cool artsy metal, hardcore stuff that's happening around here, and I'm really lucky to be a part of that scene. Like bands like Nerva are really cool, or Nightosphere. Just really artsy, hardcore. Saps is like very like Drive Like Yahoo kind of stuff, and there's really cool bands around here. It very seldomly. I call it the Kansas City curse. Do they get out and do anything? But still cool music when you come here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's dope.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's tough. I think like back in the day, and I always hate like romanticizing back in the day because like what's happening now is still cool, but it's like the way shows functioned were different, where like the touring bands would come through and then like it'd just be a bunch of local bands. So it was a great way to see what was happening in your scene while seeing the headliner you wanted. That just doesn't happen these days in the same way.
Dude, I remember seeing, gosh, what was the name of that band? I'm losing it right now. It was some major touring act that kind of had their time in the sun, but it was like a total rock, like emo rock kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The band that played directly before them was like death metal. The band before them was like skate punk. And then some dude with like a mono synth and like a drum machine played before that. And everybody cared.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. And I'm like, why is that gone?
Yeah.
Everybody's like more mad that their fucking band's not playing than to just celebrate
the scene. Yeah.
And it was sad, man. Cause I remember it was a 4-band bill every night. And it was like the dude who's just starting out always opened. And then there was like the band that's been doing a little while that you're like, yeah, they're going for it. And then that third band was like the hometown hero. They've been putting it on. They play all the big shows and nobody was jealous of them. They were just like, I want to be your friend because I want to be as good as you. And then it was a headline. It was like, it was Chevelle. It was like Chevelle played.
Okay, nice.
And then, it's crazy.
Yeah. Because then that headliner, like they're probably buying CDs and merch and taking them and sharing them with the label. And that's how bands get signed. And like, I don't know. I mean, everything is upside down now, but like,
dude, the internet, I mean, although I love it, I'm not like the scream at the sky old man.
Yeah.
But I will say the internet is fooling a lot of kids. And it's turned a majority of music into a fashion show.
Yeah.
Which is, everybody's welcome. I'm not gatekeepy, like do your thing, but like, man, you had to be good to be appreciated in KC. And now the barrier of entry is like so low and so wide.
Right.
Nobody works really hard to like impress. It's just like, hey, I did it. I have a laptop and we have backing tracks. I'm like, you're still not singing in key.
Right. Right.
You know, like it's not that your music's bad. I may not prefer it. It may not be my thing, but like you're doing it poorly.
Yeah.
But everybody gets a shot. And I'm like, I wish there was like a like in the old like magic movies, there's like a council, like we have like Keith Richards, Aretha Franklin. They're all sitting up there like, okay, you're good enough to tour. And then you're allowed to tour. Yeah, something like that.
At what time does like recording and engineering like pique your interest? I don't know if it's a realization that like, all right, I'm not going to make it in music, or just like that becomes more a thing you're passionate about or alongside? Well,
it was kind of alongside, but then there was a clear moment where I needed to make a shift. I lied, like straight up. I told the future truth. So I was at a show at a local coffee house and it sounded terrible. And I was like, man, we could do better than this. And the promoter heard it. And he goes, hey, I heard you say you could run sound better than our guy. I'll give you like $200 a night, all you want from the cafe. Can you come in Thursday and run a show? And I was like, yeah, as a cocky little piece of shit. And so I went to this church that I was like a part of, and I asked the sound guys, like, can you show me what this all does?
Oh man.
I got by Thursday, like 4 days from now, I got to run sound. He's like, yeah, I'll show you. So he showed me, went there. I did marginally better than the last idiot, and I got the gig. And so I then kicked the can down the road. I've become pretty good at live sound, and this band sends me or gives me their cassette to play over the PA because I was like, hey, I want to hear your demos. And I go, dude, I could record this better here in the venue. And they were like, well, would you do that? I was like, yeah, buy me some ADATs. And so bought some ADATs, recorded it. It was definitely better than their demos. So then there's a local producer engineer in town here, Keith Castor, who I will always tell, like, help me out. I was like, dude, can I intern under you? And he let me come to his studio and just watch and learn. And then that led to like begging and borrowing to get into Black Lodge Red House with Ed Rose. And I just was learning. And then, I had a band and we were touring and we did like Warped Tour and, our own DIY stuff. And we were signed in Japan and we had some MTV publishing and I produced and wrote and did all that stuff. And and then there was Whoa differences,
Yeah.
And I left the band and said, that's it. I'm just going to be a producer. Like we worked with like big producers in our band, and they were always like, why don't you just produce? And I was like, well, I can't go to college. I don't have that kind of money. And they're like, you just do it. So I started sleeping in the back of a studio Keith made in Independence, Missouri, on like a 2-inch mattress pad next to the HVAC unit, doing records for like full-length records for like $1,000.
Wow.
And next thing you know, I've done Norma Jean and Devil Wears Prada, and, cover with Daughtry, and work with Tech Nine, and even my own stuff. It's just wild because, like, I mean, the only difference between me and anybody else is I just kept going. I didn't stop.
Yeah.
I didn't do it for anybody else other than the fact that I loved doing it,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I basically had to quit touring and said I'd never do that again. And turns out I'm a liar.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's cool. I went to school for recording and ended up going the production route and broadcast. But yeah, it's like, but I also went to school and it was like everything at the time was like 2-inch tape and like 24 track and like awesome,
magical.
But it was like right when the Digi 002 came out for Pro Tools, and it was like as soon as I graduated, it was like, yeah, all that shit is worthless. Forget it.
It's so much easier to do, dude. You get 8 tracks on this,
right,
on your 1 gig hard drive.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember working Sound Tools, and we could go to lunch while it was rendering an EQ.
Oh my gosh.
And I have, dude, I love tape. I love the magic for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a pain in my ass. And I think I'm one of the few engineers, like we're probably one of the few people that have learned on cutting tape, like literally cutting tape. And consoles. Yeah, exactly. Dude, I have scars on my fingers from a fade in.
Yeah.
Because I'm stupid. So
it's good times. Yeah. How'd you end up kind of in that heavy world? And I know you did a bunch of like face down record stuff there for a while. Like, how'd you get into that lane? And I'm sure that led to working with Norma Jean eventually, right?
Yeah, I think one of the coolest moments that really kind of, like, an artist that truly gave me a shot to do production at a higher level was, I'm sure you know the band Hands.
Oh yeah.
So Shane Oshner, who we didn't really know each other, but like we talked about doing the record, we became really good friends working on the Give Me Rest record.
Okay.
And that came out, and then I remember a couple producers I looked up to tweeting like, who the fuck did this record? And that's when I was like, oh, I think I'm good. And then, I did a bunch of stuff for Face Down, not necessarily my world, but lots of great clients, lots of great records I was able to be a part of. And I really feel like I elevated the level of the Face Down record recording. And that's cool. Shane gave me a chance to be a real producer and really work with his music. And I think we did a great job on that, and even on the Everything in Slow Motion stuff. So because of that, I don't know what happened. I ended up filling in on guitar. My buddy Alex played drums in War of Ages, and they needed a guitar player. And I was like, I'll fill in. And it was when they were touring with Norma Jean and Close Your Eyes and The Chariot.
Okay.
And I ended up on a bus with Norma Jean and War of Ages. But I ended up like palling around with the Norma Jean guys more because we had more musical synergy, I guess is a good way to put it. Corey and I would sit up front in the lounge and like have a drink and listen to like Danzig and Smashing Pumpkins and just talk about stuff. And then what happened is I think their engineer producer they worked with on their previous record, Meridional, something happened where he couldn't really do their next record, and they had heard the Hand stuff. And they were like, hey, man, would you be interested in working with us? And I had a total like, I'm jumping 10 levels and I'm not ready for it kind of moment.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And dude, we made a really cool record. And Wrongdoers kind of put Norma Jean back in the forefront. It proved that aggression and high quality recording were still there.
Yeah.
And I was just a part of it. And from there, it's like, I don't know. It just kind of started getting phone calls and started doing a lot of writing with people. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love Meridional so much. And when Wrongdoers came out, it's such a kind of weird record because they got the fast, aggressive stuff in with the more melodic stuff. And I was like, I hate the way this record is structured.
Yeah. Oh, Wrongdoers?
Like, yeah. I'm like, there's got to be a better way to track list this so it's just more streamlined.
Yeah. You know, I don't have the chance in the order, but I do disagree with some of the climate change.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, there's like, I can't remember the Sun Dies Blood Moon.
Oh yeah.
That was written in the studio. Okay. We all just jammed it. And where it's in the record, I think Sword and Mouth, Fire Eyes, I think those need to be a little closer to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I don't know. Here's the thing.
Whatever. Yeah.
I did my job, and those guys write cool songs. They just should have done it, ordered a little different.
Yeah.
I do think we did a better job on Pulp, similar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That record kind of wrote linearly into itself, I think.
We've eclipsed the fear of God and fallen out of love. No more than a shadow, peaked and weak. Life was getting in the way. How then now should we live? With no real eye to the future threats.
I jump forward and talk about this new project. How do you and Sean meet, and then what was like the conversation for, all right, we need to work on music and have a band?
So Sean and I had just bumped into each other a lot. Like, I was out at Black Lodge, and I don't know if we like really kind of connected at those, but I was around when he was doing like guest vocals on stuff or hanging out with people, and we'd met briefly there. And then, I've been to VFW shows of Coalesce and Casey. Like, he was an idol of mine. So there was always this kind of like, God, I want to work with that guy. And then he ended up doing a guest appearance on a local band's record. And we kind of talked, and he's like, dude, this is the best my vocals have ever sounded. And I was like, well, remember me, because you ever need anybody. And so I ended up doing a couple of guest vocal spots with him. And then we had him, of course, on the Norma Jean record.
Yeah.
And dude, I just realized he's a lot like me, where I'm not so wrapped up in this music persona that we have. Like, this is my job and I love doing it. And I'm really fortunate to call my hobby my career. But it's not my identity. It's not all that I am. And that's how a lot of people know me. And Sean and I feel the same way. Like, Sean is an incredible, like, it's just this kind of like, he's just as dorky as I am. Like, we like movies. He loves, like, Transformers and old school skate stuff. And like, I'm into like movies, and I really like the music side, like playing guitar and being a guitar geek and stuff like that. And, we were just kind of on the same page. And then one day I had said something to him randomly. I think I said, hey man, if you ever want me to produce, like, or if you're ever doing something, like, I'd love to work with you. And he's like, yeah, we should do something. And I was like, yeah, I'll produce anything you're doing. Like, if you got a project. He's like, no, you and I should do some music. And I was kind of like, I don't know. Like, cause like, I look at myself of like, I don't write close to what Coalesce does.
Yeah.
And I would not want to, because there are some things that aren't worth like failing at, Right. I don't want Jess is Jess. There's nobody who writes like him.
Right.
And so I didn't know how to take that. And it brought up a lot of questions to me of like, what do I actually like to do? Because like, people know me as a couple things, is like the Norma Jean-ish hardcore thing, right?
Yeah.
Heavy music. But I was in a touring pop punk band. And I do a lot of pop punk stuff. And I do a lot of writing that a lot of people don't know about on that side. Like, I do co-writes and ghostwriting and stuff. So I do a lot of that. But I've also done rap and hip hop and pop. And my most forward thing is metal. And I'm like, dude, you don't like any of the fucking bands I produce. There's not a chance.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know what he's thinking. Like, does he think I do that? And I'm like, does Sean secretly want to do a metalcore band like Devil Wears Prada? Like, there's not a chance.
No.
and so we talked like off and on about it. And I kind of threw him some demos of like, maybe he wants something like this. And I remember jamming some demos that were kind of closer, and they were kind of like, I felt a little vulnerable about them, but they were still kind of in the like safe, this is what people expect out of me kind of lane. And then we just, there would be periods where we wouldn't talk. He was busy with merch table, and I would be producing back-to-back albums. And then I remember kind of hitting him up. I don't remember the reason, but we ended up talking, and he had gone through a lot recently, losing some friends. And I said something about, man, let's get this project going. And he goes, you know what? I don't want to hear about this anymore if you don't present me some music. Like, he's like, we either give me some music or let's just stop talking about this. We're just not going to do music. Yeah. And my personality is when I'm challenged and or reprimanded like that, I'm like, all right, motherfucker.
Right. So, I'll fucking do it.
I'll show you some music. So I had a bunch of stuff from the pandemic that like flight credits and Airbnb credits and rental credits and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I have never been here and it interests me. So I picked Oceanside, Oregon. Okay. I booked a plane ticket for 10 days. I got the rental car. I made custom things to put all my gear in, and I flew out there, told him I was doing it. And then I had an existential crisis in the Tillamook National Forest trying to figure out what the fuck I was. Yeah. Because I felt like everybody wanted me to do like a super heavy beatdown band or something. And then I was like, well, what do you like, Josh? Like, what, at the end of the day, like, what are your favorite things? And like, I started soul searching. So I'm like listening to The Cure while I'm out there, and Cult of Luna, Deftones, Lorne, Nine Inch Nails, ISIS. And I'm like, these are all the things that inspire me, like truly inspire me. Like Scores. I listen to Scores probably 90% of the year. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just want to do whatever this stuff does to make me feel this way. I want to do it. Fuck Sean, fuck everybody's expectation of me. And so I went back to this Airbnb and I wrote what is now the last song on the album, which is the most stripped down thing I've ever written in my life. And I sent it to him, which is funny. Side note, I sent that to him, but before I left for this trip, I'd broken my phone. I got a new phone. And so I didn't change all the settings. So like I'm sitting in no cell service. And I'd sent him this stuff, and I did it when I had like service when I was in town. Mm-hmm. But like, when I got out there, I was like, hours later, I'm like, dude, he didn't even listen to it. Responding. I was having a panic attack. Like, well,
that's so funny.
Dude, I was like, it's over. Like, I've just showed my hand, and like, he hates it. Yeah. Does he love me anymore? No. So anyways, it turned out I fixed my Wi-Fi calling setting, and then my phone blew up from him, and he was like in love with it.
Oh man. Awesome.
And I had this sigh of relief, and I was like, are you sure? Are you positive? So then it was like the floodgates opened, and I wrote the whole album. There's a couple songs that didn't make it that nobody will ever hear. But pretty much the whole album nice. On that trip. And it's really funny. They're not the final versions aren't that dissimilar from what we ended up tracking. Nice. So, but yeah, that's how it all happened. And then like it was kind of like that boulder started rolling, and then everything else just kind of happened after. And it was just Sean challenged me, and I luckily rose to the occasion.
That's awesome. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've not heard the whole record yet, but like, it's funny hearing you talk about that, because Rare Bird to me sounds like when Norma Jean does a song I really like the more that's what Rare Bird hits the same way, which is so funny, because I'm like, this is doing what Norma Jean does, what I think they're the fucking best. So like,
that's a compliment. I appreciate that.
So yeah, you recorded this album out in Norway. You said you love Cult of Luna. That's part of the reason. Why that decision, not just to keep it in-house and do it yourself? Was it to get other perspectives, or? Okay,
here's the honest truth. So I wanted to write the record near the ocean, and I wanted to write it in the saddest, shittiest weather possible. And I did. So I was there. I was in Oregon, like literally the day before Halloween, up until the first week of November. And it was misty and the weather was terrible. It was gray. It was cold. And I thought, man, like if I wrote this like this, I think we should record it like this. And I kind of like I'm telling you, and Sean will tell you this too, everything that happened with this band on this record specifically was such coincidence and kind of like whatever you want to call it, the universe just like tossing it back in our face and saying like, okay, bet if you feel that way. But what happened is I kind of was like, I want to look at studios near the ocean. The first thing that comes up when you look up studios near the ocean is like some jerk off studio in California that's all happy. And I'm like, that's not us. Like,
that's not the vibe. Yeah.
You know, and Sean and I, although we love it, like we'd go down there and be in the sun and get coffee and walk. Like, that's fine, but that doesn't fit the vibe we were going for. Or not even going for. Like, the music told us what it was. Yeah. And our lives definitely kicked our asses enough to like make it a sad album. So I was looking around and then, 3 or 4 searches down, Ocean Sound pops up. Only thing I did, and some of the documentation that's been out there about us is it's close to the truth, but it's a little wrong. I looked at the website and said, you literally can walk out the fucking window of the control room and there's the ocean. Nice. And it's Norway. So I know it's gray and it's not going to be super warm, especially if we go in the October time period. And I call Sean, and Sean hates it when I call him and I do this. Hear me out. He's like, what? And I was like, let's go do it in Norway at the studio. After getting him to say yes and going back to the website and then looking at the artists that recorded there, that I noticed Colta Luna had done two of my favorite, or like one of my favorite records there. Nice. And I was like, oh shit. That's the fucking like now we have to do this. Yeah. And I didn't know before we were committed to it. But after I saw that, I was like, well, this is feather in the hat. Let's go. Yeah. So called him, told him, hey, don't need an engineer. Luckily the timeline worked up where we could do that. And it's exactly the same fucking time that I went to Oregon a year later.
That's right.
And yeah, we went out there and it was fucking it's the most magical studio I've been to. Second place, Pachyderm up in Minnesota. But yeah, dude, that's kind of why we picked it, and that's why we ended up there. And I can record the whole album. Like, I'm a guitar player. I did all the keys and a lot of stuff. And only thing I would need is a drummer. And a lot of my friends can just fly me drum track. I could have done it in my studio here and saved money, but I think I'm always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Yeah. You know, and I was like, Sean, we didn't want anybody to hear this shit. We were just going to keep it to ourselves as our little midlife crisis. And, which I hate saying that, but I mean, you know, like we just wanted to make something for us for once. Yeah. And, we went out there with a bunch of friends. Like, I could have called a bunch of A-list guys and paid them, but like, I just want to go out there with cool people that are talented, that understand the vibe, and magic occurred. You know, we recorded all the music in 2 days.
That's right.
Yeah, it's all live. Like, there's no editing, there's no drum samples, there's no bullshit. It's just like, some of the takes took a long time to get the first pass, but then there's others. It was like top down one time, we were done. Yeah. So it was just magical. Yeah, that's cool. These might be more Sean focused questions here, but like, album's called Life is Violence. Where'd that title and concept for the album come from? Like, it does become a Sean question, but it starts a Josh question. All right, great. I do walks and stuff around, but I had been going through some health issues, got horrible news about something, and I was just walking around. And you know, when you haven't spoken in a long time and then you hear your voice and you shock yourself, I don't know if you've ever done that, but I don't think I talk to myself a lot, and then I'm talking to people here all day. So, oh, that's true. That's true. But I had the fortunate position, 2 days where I didn't really have to hear my own voice. Yeah. And then I had my earplugs in and I was listening to the new Sigur record. Specifically, I think the song's called Blue. Okay. And he's not saying fucking words that I understand, and it's a super pretty song, But I stepped up on the curb and I took my headphones out and I go, everything about life is violence. I said it out loud and shocked myself. And I immediately text Sean. I go, I think I know the title of the record. And he's like, well, we should get together and talk. So I ended up driving to Lawrence and we went to this little bar that we like to go to. And I told him, and I said, everything about life is violence. And he just looked at me and goes, life is violence. And that was it. It was like, nice. Done. So he took the idea and like what Sean typically does, takes my idea and he goes, this is better. And, it manifested itself out of frustration.
Nice.
But it really does, like, even the band name and everything is really, everything's just like perfectly centered around what we were feeling at that time.
That's cool. I mean, I think that is a totally relatable album title, especially these days. Like, I feel it. I'm just like, life is violence. Yeah, man. Fuck.
Everything about it, man. It's just
everything about it.
Fucking sucks.
Yep. Who did the album artwork?
Richard Wadcock. Okay. Sean and I, we were looking around like what fit the vibe of this, and Sean and I were kind of like, man, there was a point where we had to relinquish control over choosing because all these little coincidences kept happening. And we both agreed that like the standard post-metal thing is like this monolithic, super clean, like foreboding, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it kind of is like, we don't need to add to that conversation. We're not going to do anything cooler than ISIS did. We're not going to do anything cooler than what Cult of Luna's done. But how do we just be us and let it happen? And we agreed to like, let's look at some fine art. Let's look at like some of this abstract art was speaking to us. So we both went to our respective corners of the internet, and Sean found this painting, and it was beautiful because it was kind of like black and white. And there was a lyric in one of the songs that talks about just a drop of blood to get you through. And it had this little speck of red in it. Like it was a mistake, but it was also super intentional. And it spoke to him and he sent it to me. And I was like, what? Yeah. Like, this is really cool. And we reached out to them. And then, I won't bore you with the minutia, but essentially we got to a point where Sean said, hey, would you just listen to the album and paint it? And we sent him the album. Didn't hear shit from the guy. So I was like, well, this old dude's like, fuck these guys and this stupid music, right? And I'm like, dude, I was so bummed out because I was like, dude, this guy's art is so fucking sick. And he's so talented. Yeah. And if he just shits on our music, I'm going to be so bummed out. But man, a couple days later, he sent us like 6 different things he was working on, and they were all like perfect, except for one was the one. Like it's our album artwork, and it worked out, man. Like everything about this band is just like, I feel like we're just like walking out and waiting for something to fall in front of us, and we go, "That's it."
That's cool.
It's pretty sick.
That's awesome. How does it then go from like, this is our midlife crisis project to like, okay, Relapse Records is putting this out?
Well, so like, we've kind of avoided the midlife crisis thing because that's what I've been saying. But like, so when we came back, both Sean and I had DMs from many different corners of the internet. Send me the album. Send me what you're doing. And we were like, nah. You'll hear it when everybody else hears it. We were convinced this was going to go on Bandcamp. We were going to play one show in Lawrence and just kind of like let our hair get more gray.
Yeah.
But Relapse was like once a week messaging him. And that kind of signaled to me that they were actually genuinely interested. Mm-hmm. And then Sean got frustrated. He's like, can we just send him a fucking song? Like, and I was like, dude, they're just roughs. They're not even done. Like, I haven't even mixed the thing. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. Like, if they want the rough, if they love the rough, they'll love the final.
Yeah.
So we sent it to him, and the rest is fucking history. Like, we had talked to a couple other labels that were interested, but Relapse proved to us that their investment in our art and the way they view it and how they align as a label was more in where we were at. Because it's important to us that this gets portrayed and shown the way we wanted it to.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a better label after dealing with them. And I was a huge fan, like we all love Dillinger and Mastodon and exactly. Right. So, and the stuff they do is so fucking cool. And all the dudes there love music and they love art. And, they're not like the label. I deal with a lot of labels, you know, a lot. And I was like convinced we're never going to sign because I fucking hate labels. And I'm like, cool. Like the A&R guy is gone in 3 months. So
now your record shoved.
Exactly. I've seen it happen. Like, dude, don't even start me on rap labels. Like it's like a revolving door of people who are like, I'm hype on this. And then, somebody does something else. And like, never mind. We're not doing that anymore. And like, I just felt like we were going to get lost in that shuffle. Yeah. And I never really believed that we would find a home, to be honest. Like, I thought we were just going to do it for us and call it. But Relapse, man, like, I can't speak like more highly of how, not even just our stuff and my experience, but just watching them do stuff for like Death and, Living Gate and all these cool bands. Like, they just really go all in. Drew and Rennie over there are insanely good. So
all the Cave-In reissues they're doing right now, them the attention, like it's phenomenal.
The stuff they've got going on is wild, man. Relapse controls the weather. It's amazing.
Album's out April 11th. I mean, you got a busy studio job. Sean's obviously got Coalesced rebooted and like other stuff. So what's the plan or hope for this project? Just like finally excited to have people hear it and just kind of, I don't know, see what happens and continue to ride the wave and just like if cool shit comes along, it comes along.
Yeah, I think we're just waiting to see what happens. The response so far has actually been kind of ridiculous. It's humbling for a band that's done absolutely nothing. For where we're at, like people really love the music video. We just had a show in Philly and New York, and we got loved on real hard on the East Coast, and everybody that came out was fucking fantastic. Every band we played with was fantastic. Like lots of compliments. The crowds were great. So like, I think we're just down to see what happens. We have some stuff in store. There's a long way to go till April. And so, there's a lot of things that are going to come out that I think will be really cool. But yeah, I do think shows are in our future. Opportunities, like we're really trying to curate cool stuff to do and be a part of. So, hopefully we'll be seeing a lot of everybody in every state. But we'll see what's going on. We got the album release with Norma Jean just released today. So that'll be here in KC the day our album comes out. So we're going to do some cool stuff for that. Dude, if I had to like give a blurb for anybody that's even somewhat interested in the dumb shit I'm saying, is that this album is probably the most personal thing for Sean and myself, and it deals with a lot of stuff that I think everybody deals with and is really hard to say out loud, and everything from depression and anxiety into like suicide and yourself and leaving importance to those that love you. And there's some hope in the record, but it's by living kind of in the things that aren't hopeful. And this means a lot to us. And anybody that can connect with that, like, I really appreciate them. And I really appreciate like you taking the time to like talk to me about this, and anybody that gives anything, because it's not just a bunch of dudes trying to be cool. This is just something we had to do, and we were going to do it whether anybody paid attention or not. And so I really appreciate everybody's time.